your camera. I know we're very shy. So today we're going to be talking about, well, let me put it this way. Sometimes people ask me when they're getting into real estate, they're like, do I have to join the Association of Realtors, right? Do I have to join the multiple listing service? Now, most people understand why they want to join the multiple listing service, right? I mean, that's kind of obvious. But why do I have to join the union? I don't want to join the union. And so the answer as to why you want union membership, right, the Association of Realtors, is number one, that's what gives you access to the forms we use. And number two, there's some other special software that you only get access to if you're a member of the Association of Realtors. We're going to talk about one of those today. It's called RPR, which is the Realtors Property Resource. And if you are a member of any Association of Realtors in the United States, you should have access to RPR. Now, I believe my assistant, if she has not done so yet, but she always does, is pasted in a link to a folder, which I'm sharing with y'all, right, if you want. And the folder, oh, that's not the folder. Let me pull up the chat so I'm looking at the same folder. Is that right? It is not the same folder. Okay, so give me a second. Not what we shared. All right. So the folder, which I hope is being shared with you, should look like this, right? And I'm going to copy it and paste it in because I'm not really sure, right, what's going on. But it should look like this. And you should have a copy of it. And what I've included was some things that you could get to. This, by the way, does not belong there. All right. I'm sorry about all that. So it's not there. Okay. So one of the things, sorry for there's a document which will move into the folder eventually and add the branding to it. But it's a good place to start. These are the 50 ways of, these are the 50 ways real estate agents can use RPR. And there's some general categories. And what I intend to do today is talk about what is how to get set up properly, how to customize some of the normal things, and to talk about how to do the thing that we usually do the most, which is to come up with a valuation. Now, in addition, I believe I'm going to tell you some things about how to use RPR that you do not know. But if you're interested in all the different things, one of the other sessions I plan on doing is how you can use RPR in geographic farming, how you can use it to find listings, how for buyers, and how to do targeted marketing using RPR. But here's a list of the 50 ways that you can use RPR in your business. All right. So, and that will be moved into the folder, hopefully before the end of the class. And then NAR, the Realtor Property Resource Training, this is the links from which the RPR system has training for beginners and things like that. I also included in this these things called printables, which are a bunch of PDFs, plus some ebooks on some of the things that we're going to be looking at today. All right, but let's take a look at RPR, and let's say you're new to RPR and you're just getting started. What should you do? First of all, you might need to register. And usually the way you register is there's a link that is in your multiple listing service that says RPR. And if you've never gone there before and you click on it, they're going to ask you to register. Now, a piece of information they're going to want is your NRDS number, NRDS, which is your realtor's number. They also are going to give you a lookup. So if you don't know your realtor's number, you can look it up, your NRDS number. Now, some of you know it because that's a number they want you to put in the MLS in order to log in. My MLS doesn't require the NRDS number. I don't know anyone who knows what their NRDS number is unless they write it down. But there's a lookup, which if you know your DRE number, which you should know, and your last name, you can find your NRDS number. And so now you've registered and you've logged in and you're looking at something like this. First thing you're going to want to do is go up to your picture. And if you're saying, well, I don't actually have a picture, how do I fix that? We can fix that. And you would go to profile and notice you could change your photo. You may or may not be able to change your logo, right? If you're with a major real estate organization and they've provided a logo, it's going to be kind of hardwired. You can add stuff, but you're not going to necessarily be able to take away your broker's logo. Office name and that sort of stuff is also inputted by your broker. Now, some of you might be saying, well, yeah, okay, but San Ramon, I'm not really in San Ramon. I mean, the broker's main address is, well, what do I do? I'm going to show you that when it comes time to print reports, you can toggle on or off whether or not you want the address, right? The California Department of Real Estate does not require that you have the address of your broker, right? Doesn't require that. They want the broker's name. They want your name, and your surname has to match whatever it says on your license. And they want you to identify the broker, maybe I already said that, and they want your DRE number, right? But they don't care about the address. So you fill out this information, you can put in your website. You should be connected to an MLS. If not, you're going to pick the state and you're going to find your MLS and you're going to connect it. Now, sometimes people say, well, I don't know what is CREXI? What is CREXI? Right? And why is it here? Now, first of all, if you're a member of the California Association of Realtors, you have a CREXI account. Let me say that again. If you're a member of the California Association of Realtors, you have a CREXI account, whether you wanted one or not. It's a member benefit. Now, what is CREXI? CREXI is a commercial real estate database. And you're going to see in RPR, you can toggle from residential and commercial, and you can even do a search in commercial for commercial properties, not MLS properties. Right? We're not talking about properties that are in the multiple listing service. We're talking about properties that are on the market that are commercial and not in the MLS. And the question is, how does RPR know that those properties are for sale? And the answer is CREXI, right? CREXI is like LoopNet. It's one of the large databases where people can search. You need to put in your license number. If you've got any designations, you can get, it doesn't hurt to get information from them. I only have a few devices. In fact, I don't even have an iPhone, so I don't know, I'm not going to add, but I have a bunch of devices that RPR works on. I'm currently using a Pixel 6 Google. By the way, you're going to want to have the RPR mobile app.
I'm sorry to jump in here, but I'm using a sign language interpreter, and my interpreter is not catching the name that you're saying. Can you spell CREXI, please?
Do you mean the name that's on the screen?
Interpreter is trying to interpret to me, but the interpreter doesn't see the name and is not familiar. So can you give it just for the benefit of the interpreter so that we're all on the same page? Sure.
I'll paste it in the chat.
The interpreter's not on Zoom. Can you spell the name, please?
CREXI.
Thank you.
And by the way, this is being recorded and it'll be on my YouTube channel. And for a nominal fee, actually, I guess I'm doing the Pixel 7. You're going to want to have RPR mobile access, right? You're going to want the app on your phone. I'm telling you, you're going to want this app on your phone. It's good for showing property, right? You're showing a property and they start asking you detailed questions that you would need to look up. It's probably right there, right? Because it pulls up county records and things like that. Also, it's geolocated so that if you're standing in front of a house and you open up the mobile app, it thinks you want to know about that house, but it'll show you other houses in the area. It's also very good on listing appointments, because if they say, well, you know, I heard that the person over there got so much when, you know, that sort of thing, then okay, we'll let me look at that, right? And you can look it up with the mobile app. So that's that part. I'm assuming that wasn't too difficult. So what we also want to do is make this go away. And you might want to look at settings. Now, this is just for display purposes, but notice here about different market areas, right? You can type in, I don't know if there's a limit, right? I don't know. I've never, you know, really tested that, but anyhow, you can type in your different market areas. All right, let's go back. All right, so there we go. All right, cancel. All right, so let's start with the home, right? All right. First of all, I'll show you something you probably didn't know, right? How about that? Does that sound like fun, right? I mean, some of you might know this, some of you may not know this, but let's take a shot at it, right? Something you didn't know about what RPR can do. Now, I also will admit that I'm hesitant to share this because I'm afraid, well, I know real estate agents, that you're going to go too far, right? And I'll show you what I mean. One of the tabs that doesn't get clicked on as much in RPR is called research. And one of the sub tabs is called residential market trends. And what you need to do is to put in, like, well, I don't know, an area. This could be a county, it could be a zip code, it could be a city. Let's take a look at a county. Now, what it's going to pretty much instantly do is start giving me graphs and charts about what's going on in the county, which updates fairly regularly. I can click on this and I could say, I only want to know single family homes, right? Generally, when I'm doing market statistics, I would include single family condos and townhouses, right? So notice this is a nice little graph. Look at where, welcome to Silicon Valley, right? Look at where the, you know, the little marker is. This is, we're in the seller's market. Now, how much inventory do we have in Silicon Valley in terms of months? Less than 1 month. For those of you who are wondering what that's like, normally you would need 4 to 6 months of inventory for it to be considered a balanced market. 4 to 6 months is a balanced market. We don't have 1 month's worth of inventory. The average property sold for 4.2% over list price. And you can see things are just languishing on the market in Silicon Valley in 8 days for a median price of 1.5. Now, if you like that, and by the way, in RPR reports, this will come in, but let's say I go up here to the share button and I want to share this on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or more. I want a JPEG, a PNG, or I just want to copy it, right? And when I copy, what I'm going to get is what's here, which I could then go to social media and paste it in and then say, wow, I have a market update, right? And because this is one of the things that real estate agents are always keen about. I want to do a market update. right? But you know, I don't want to make it myself. Now, now notice here's one about the price. All right, I could share that too, right? And see, it's going to preview, it's going to look really nice. I can put that into. What else? So they have new listings. That sounds interesting. I could share that too. Yeah, has anybody figured out why I was hesitant to talk about this? Then here are active listings. I could share that too. And pending listings, I could share that too. And more, I could share that. And then sold listings, I could share that. And months of inventory, I could share that. And public record searches. Now, you see the reason why this could go horribly wrong is because, and maybe some of you are already thinking this, you're saying like, I could post this stuff like every day. And you know, Santa Clara County is a big county. It's got it's got a bunch of cities. So in addition to pasting all the stuff about the county, I'm going to paste stuff about every single city in Santa Clara County too. You know, San Jose is a really big city. And it's got a whole bunch of different zip codes and neighborhoods. After I'm done with all the cities, I'm going to do every zip code. You understand, you're not going to have any friends left on social media if you do that. Right? That might be going a little bit too far. I'm just saying, resist the urge to only post real estate stuff on social media, right? I'm just throwing that out there as a comment. So maybe you already knew that, but for people that are looking, well, how do I do a market update? There you go. There you go. So if somebody has an address of a property they would like me to show you how to do research on, you could paste it into the chat. I would prefer that you not pick something that you know there are no comparables, right? Because it's not going to help, right? But if you have one, if not, I'll just use one of the ones that I've done lately. But sometimes people say, hey, you know, do this one. Right, and I don't see an overwhelming reply yet, but if not, I'll just go ahead and pick one. Nobody has an address. You're afraid to tell us the address because you think we'll just, you know, all jump on it and do that sort of stuff. How about, I'll pick one since nobody's giving me one. All right, how about this? So how about this? Oh, here we go. There's a brave person who's given me one. You know, this is an aggressive group, so they're probably going to be driving over to pound on the door as soon as the class is over, right? And by the way, there's a question. Let me see if I can make this bigger. What are the other things about RPR? And what are the other things about RPR? It works pretty much everywhere in the United States. So RPR, I recently ran a comparative market analysis on a property in Arizona, right? Because I've run them in Texas. So RPR works pretty much everywhere, right? That's one of the unique things about it. Also, it works in some areas where they're not really interested in sharing their listings. But anyhow, let's look at this one in Lincoln, California. And it looks beautiful. So let's take a look at, I'm assuming that because this is off market, that a listing appointment is coming up, something like that. So what I look at, one of the things I peek at first is over here, it says RVM confidence. Now, RVM stands for the Realtor's Valuation Model, which is an automated valuation model like Zillow, right? Redfin, right? They all have, they'll tell you what they think your house is worth. That's what it is. Now, why this one's got 5 stars, does that mean it is right on the number? Well, not necessarily. How do you get 5 stars if this number, the 566, 560, is consistent with all of the other automated valuation models, right? That's how you get stars, right? And if others are saying we can't even give you an estimate, you get less stars. Now, the first thing that I do, if I were going to, know what this property is worth or what to talk about in terms of value, is I would either click on the number that RVM is providing or on view details, right? It doesn't really matter. We're going to end up at the same page. By the way, when I'm in a hurry, and let's say I was going to do an open house, this is something also you might not have known. I'm going to do an open house, and it'd be nice to have comps. Wouldn't it be nice to have some comps? But I'm in a real hurry. I haven't had time to really look. What could I do? I go in here and I go up and I click on print, like up in the upper right-hand corner, and I print this out. Perfect? No, but I was in a hurry. There's something. Now, what I do when I'm looking at this, and there's a reason why I start with their automated valuation model, is I want to look at the year built and the square footage. This is a 4.3, 2047, 1995. So what I'm going to pay particular attention to is all the ones that are around 1995. 1988, not good enough. 1976, yeah, not good enough. 1990, so here are two of them. Neither of them is a 4.3. Thank you for giving me neither of them is a 4.3. But the reason I'm doing this, looking at them, is because sometimes what RPR finds is some off-market sales. Now, we can search for off-market sales, but when they do their realtor's valuation model, they include county record transfers, including those that did not go through the MLS. You do a CMA in the MLS, you're going to get, well, what's sold in the MLS. But let's say you've just done your presentation and left, and I show up, and my CMA has sales comps that yours does not. And the seller says, well, they didn't tell us about this one. Oh, well, that's because this one was sold off the MLS, and I'm an area specialist. So I know about everything that's happening, not just the stuff that's in the multiple listing service. And sometimes you'll find a dead ringer, same square footage, built the same year, same age, that sold off market. And there it is. Now, what I would do, we don't really have any. See, all of these that say off market as opposed to closed. Closed means it went in the MLS. Off market means it didn't go through the MLS. But let's say there was one that jumped out at me because of the size, the age. It was really a very similar one. I might copy that address for later. And I'll show you what I mean by later, right? So I would look at this just to see if there's any comps that I might want to pay attention to, right? Then we've got this basic information. If we scroll down, it shows us different things. This is the part most of you are going to use. Now, by the way, there's a lot of information about property facts. There's interior features, the legal description, schools, that's interesting, name of the owner, location, history of the property, and you can see there's mortgage history and tax history, all these different things, sales and financing activity, yeah, not too much. Estimated value, this shows over time what they believe, they being the realtor's property resource robot. This is assessed value, which isn't really relevant. This shows you the ups and downs and the value, all that sort of thing. Now, by the way, if this is a listing appointment, let me just say something before we go into the CMA. If this is a listing appointment and I want to draft a listing agreement in advance, most MLSs have a connection with zip forms or the software. You can do it in SkySlope, but the software that we use to write offers. You can import information from the MLS directly into the form. But this property is not in the MLS. It's a listing appointment, right? So we can't import the MLS, it's not there. But what we can do when we scroll down is we're going to see transactions and zip forms. Now, I'm going to, in a later class, go through Valuate, which is used for investment properties. But if we click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to import into zip forms as much as it can from the county records on the property. So if I click on create a new zip forms transaction, it'll load. In other words, it'll put in, we have to tweak it a little bit, but it's going to put in the address, the assessor's parcel number, the names of the sellers, all that stuff will be imported and it will create a transaction. This is why I start in RPR, because not only am I gathering information about the property, I can even start the process of writing the form. CMA value, create a CMA. This is what I do. Now notice up here, there's two choices, the sales comparison analysis or the comparative analysis. Unless you're, the sales comparison is a much more detailed worksheet, which is supposed to be something that an appraiser could use, but I don't know any appraiser that uses it. It's more complicated. And it also assumes that you're good at making adjustments for the different comparables, but we haven't even seen this house yet, right? So making adjustments is something we may not be able to do right now. So normally we would just stick with the default setting. Now we're going to confirm the home facts. I cannot repeat this enough. If you're going on a listing appointment, here's the question you need to ask before you go there. Will you please describe your home to me? Please describe your home. And by the way, mention any renovations, improvements that you've made. Now, the reason that I say that, and many real estate agents won't ask that question, because they figure you're going to dazzle the seller by looking it up in the tax records, right? I went on an appointment with somebody that was on my team, and that's what she did, right? She didn't want to ask them, right? Because, you know, it might sound like she doesn't know about the property. So she looked it up in the tax records and it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,300 square foot house, right? So she does the CMA, I'm doing the listing presentation part. We show up, it is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,800 square foot house. What's the value of her comps, right? And they had done some stuff without the benefit of permits. Now, by the way, my script for this is, I told her, we're not going to go through the CMA. And I said to the seller, you know, a professional appraiser would not just show up and say a number. They would want to do research and look at the home and do all that other kind of stuff. And so anyhow, I BS'd him into thinking it was a good idea that I tell him later what the houses were. But while I'm sitting there and they're talking, I'm looking at RPR on my mobile device. And sure enough, there was another house not very far away that was a 3-1 that was made into a 5-3, and they didn't have permits either. And before I left, I told them, based upon what RPR Mobile was telling me, 1.2 is what I told them, and the property eventually sold for $1,220,000. So you need to ask them, describe your house. Don't be shocked if what they say is different from what you read here. So what do? Well, if it's a 5-bedroom, you put in 5. If it's, you know, I don't know if it would have more than 3 baths, but you would make the changes over here. Now, I get asked this a lot, but no, changing it here does not change the county records. I get asked that a lot. I mean, just think about it, right? You know, the chaos. This is only going to change it in this particular comparative market analysis. All right. So most of the time, what they describe looks like this. We say, yeah, sure, we've confirmed the facts. All right, step 1. Step 2, find comps. Now, notice it's going to, we pay attention. See, it says add a known property. If I find, when I'm looking at the original, when I went at the realtor's valuation model, and remember there were particular properties that were off-market properties, and if I saw one that looked like this one but didn't go through the MLS and it looked like it was a real sale in terms of price, I would paste it in here. But normally we're not doing that, right? By the way, you also want to run the MLS. RPR is not perfect. So I would look at what the MLS has in sales around the property. I would look for county record transfers, which RPR does, but we can even refine a little bit more. And I also would be looking what RPR finds. And if I find a comp that RPR missed, I would be adding it when I'm done into the known properties. So here's the subject property. This is what I always do. I put in the radius. I go out 1/2 of a mile. Now that's a maximum. If you were an investor and you're buying the property as a flip, you would only want to see comps within 1/4 of a mile, right? Location, location, location. Right. And as you go out, they, different neighborhoods, whatever, where you can click on search in this area. Now, the default setting over here, let me just go back to modify search, is the last 3 months. Now, if I don't get enough comps, I might go back 6 months. It is better, in my opinion, to go back in time, but be talking about the same neighborhood than it is to go into other neighborhoods. But this one's not producing a lot of comps. Let me pick out some more just to see. So I'm going back 6 months and I hit search. And now we got more, right? Notice how now some that are right next door. Now, if you're saying, well, wait a second, some of those could be 5 months ago, right? Prices have probably changed in the last 5 months. Gee, that's true. Is there any program you could think of that would show you over a limited time frame how much prices have increased in a given area? Is that what I started with? Right? If I put in that zip code, could I see what was the average and median price in that zip code when it sold? How much has the market changed since then? I could factor that in. I could make adjustments. But from this picture, notice some of these, and you can zoom in. Oops, if you do it right, you can zoom in. And so some of them are right next door, right? Now, you might just want to, you could click on them and add them as a comp. Now, what I'm always paying attention to is 1995, 2047. It's a 4.3. All right, now this one, if I click on it, is a 3.2, and I don't know. So I usually just scroll down here, right? Because this gives me more data in one line. This is a public record. This is something that RPR does that your MLS software will not do. Notice this little star says they use this in the realtor's valuation model. I'm going to add it. Here's another one, public record. Notice it's telling us how far away. Closer is better. 1994. Again, we're not talking about exactly the same model. It's a 3.2, but what do we got? Now, go down a little bit further. Here's a 4, but 1901. I don't know about that. 2003. I don't know. Right? I would be more likely to use this one, because it's roughly the same square footage. I mean, not exactly, right? But, it's getting close. It's a little bigger. It's a 4.3, 1999. It's almost 1/4 of a mile away. Well, why not, right? And what we're getting is a range of 534 to 680. And you notice it tells us the bottom of the range is set by whatever that one is, and the top of the range is set by that one. So if we look here, this is 329 a square foot, 332 a square foot. Here's the one, 261 a square foot. This is the one that's bringing down the valuation, right? That's less per square foot than the others. It's also a little further out. You see what we can do, right? Now, sometimes you find comps, subdivision, same, age is the same. You find a few of the same models. Many times we're not that lucky, right? Not that lucky. And so what we can now do, once we've said, all right, this is all we got, right? And you should have at least 3, but we're going to update valuation and close. Now, what we want to do is perhaps to make adjustments based on the condition of the property. That kind of sort of assumes you know what the properties look like. This is the hard part, because some of our comps, like in this case, all of them, were sold off market. What that means is we don't have the benefit of looking at MLS photos. We don't have the benefit of looking at a multiple listing service description of the property, right? We don't know what they really look like inside, right? We don't know, right? And so, we're just guessing. Now, if this wasn't such a limited comp, let's say some of these were actually in the MLS, right? Just for purposes of, some of them are in the MLS. And this one here, which of course is on the same street, if we open it up, you'll see what I mean about the photos. When you see those little arrows, this is a Google Street View, it means they don't have photos, right? So we don't know. But let's say it was in the MLS. And this is why you also want to ask a lot of questions about how would you rate the condition of your property? What improvements have you made? Have you updated anything? Tell me, right? Because if this were in the MLS, there would be a description about this property, whether or not it's been remodeled and updated and all that sort of stuff. Now, what we can do, assuming we know what the comps look like inside, and at this point, we don't even know what this one looks like inside, we can move the sliders. So if we could say that, well, our property is in better condition than this property, so how does this property compare to the subject property? We would say, well, it's worse than the subject properties. Now, the adjustments you made to your comps affect the subject property, right? So notice what it did is it raised the value of the subject property by $11,224. Our property is better than that one. All right, it's also raising it again, right? But we're not as good as this one. All right, it's going to bring it down. This is not scientific. I don't know if you've noticed that. Not scientific. And it also assumes that you know what the other properties look like, right? Which, let's just say we may not know. But that's what we would do to adjust the comps. By the way, we also have the ability to adjust the subject property by adding in remodeling and things like that. I don't bother with adjusting the subject property or adjusting the comps unless I'm trying to cook the book. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is, let's say I know the seller wants a certain amount. I know it because I asked him. By the way, one of the questions you ought to ask is, by the way, I assume you've been paying attention to what's going on in your market, up to date, that sort of thing. Do you have an idea what your home is likely to sell for? Sometimes they'll just blurt it out. Say, I want 1.2. Oh, no, okay, cool. I understand. Well, yeah, that's possible. So I would like the market analysis to come up close to 1.2. I would like it. All right, well, how could I do that? Aren't the comps the comps? Well, maybe the subject property is in better condition than the comps. Meaning the comps are not as nice of an area. And so by moving those sliders around, adjusting up the subject property or adjusting down the comps, you see the price changes, the recommended price. Now, as a strategy we don't want to overlist the property, but you saw from the county that I'm in, it's an intense seller's market. And I would always encourage them to list low so that they could go up, which would make it, we don't have to hit the number right on the dot. But then we get to this part, right, where we're going to create a report. Okay, is there a question? I see your hand is up, Mario. Yes? No? Well, your hand is up. At least it's not a figure, so I'm okay. All right. Here are the different reports. You can see I do this a lot. If I were preparing a CMA for a buyer, and I'm telling you, when I have buyers, I run one of these before I show them a house. All right, I have a spreadsheet. If you look through my videos on how to show property, I have a spreadsheet and I put a link to the RPR report on the house, right? Before I show the property. That way, if they say, well, what are the other ones have sold for, things like that. First of all, I've got it on my phone, right? I have RPR on my phone. So, and I've saved the listing, which you do just by clicking on a button. I've saved the listing so I can easily pull it up on my phone and see what's going on. Property reports is what I would run for a buyer. A seller's report is what I would run for a seller. Wow. Glad you didn't pay for this, huh? But notice it says 81 pages. Ooh. That's a lot. Now, if we click on it, one of the other things which you may not have known is that you can attach other PDF documents to your CMAs, as I have done so here, where I have a marketing plan that is attached. So instead of having a second thing, I could include this. All right, maybe you don't want to tell them that. Now, notice I don't check all the boxes, right? So some of this is maybe okay, maybe the home facts, I don't know what ARRP. Refined value means if we moved sliders around. Property photos, I'm only going to include if there's real photos, like the historical photos. Sometimes people get upset if you show them pictures of their house before it was renovated. They don't like that. Here's assessed, I might like that. I don't check all this stuff, right? Market, I mean, you could do this. These are reports and graphs and also look at what the 81 pages look like, you know? I usually don't do all of this stuff. And by the way, market activity is dangerous to include, because what market activity is, they show all that's going on in that zip code, which may include properties that are no way comparable to yours, right? So why fight about it? It just fills it up. Recommended pricing strategy. Whoever speaks first often loses. You would like them to tell you before you tell them, right? I have strategies on how to do this, but whether or not you want, if you commit to a number here and you haven't even seen the house, right? You haven't even seen, I wouldn't commit to a number, right? Right now, I'm just giving them, you know, comps and stuff about what's going on in the market. Subject for whatever, notes, public records, listings. This, I notice I've included both. I'm going to suppress I mean, whether you include these or not, you want to, I oftentimes suppress the estimated value for the subject property. I usually do that because it's going to look like I'm telling the seller a number, right? When I haven't even seen the property, I haven't even seen the comps, you know, how do I know, you know? Now, you can email this directly to yourself, to the seller. You could also just display it now or download it. You could put in their name, you could write them a little note, it goes on the front. Now, the other things to look at before we hit the button, this is sort of giving us an idea of what it looks like. Look down here. So do I really, for example, this is what I picked for this report, right? It's going to have the broker's logo, broker's name, my photo, my license number, my designations, work and email phone. Yeah, well, that's it. Custom pages, that's where I put my market analysis. I could add another one. There's that. I could edit my profile right now, but I'm just going to click on run report. And away it goes, right? And it's going to make a noise at some point, and it'll be right up here. Now, let's see. Do I want to do one? We'll wait for it to fit. Somebody's there. Now, notice that this created a link. See that hyperlink up at the top? I just take that and paste it into a Google Sheets that I share with clients. If I were showing this property, for example, that link works. In other words, you could put it in a spreadsheet, you could email it to somebody. It also will create, if I pick email, I can email it to the client. Here we are, yeah. And it's got my comp analysis, right? Which you could get rid of. I'm just saying, you have to know whether or not you want to, commit to it. Information about the property, graphs and charts, more stuff about the property, more graphs and charts. This is a little interesting. It shows us, mostly this has been tax assessments, but it would show distress things and other sales like that. Market activity. This is a chart I don't always include it, but we were just playing around, and it's got heat, whatever, heat maps. This is graphs and charts up and down, average price, market health. Now, I'm in Silicon Valley, as I may have mentioned. There are a lot of engineers, and some of them like to see all this stuff, right? Data is good. Right? Data good, more data, better, right? But can you see that depending upon who you're talking to, you could eliminate a lot of these pages, right? You don't necessarily need 81 pages. So here's the comps, here they are, here's information about each one, easy peasy. This, by the way, is put on by, your broker may have different ones, but this is sort of hardwired in. By the way, something you didn't know. I don't like all that stuff hardwired in. Don't like it. Don't want it. So this is something you may not have known. What we're going to do is we're going to upload that file into Google Drive, and we're going to go to downloads, and here it is, right? And then it's uploading. All right. Finish uploading. All right, here we go. So here it is in Google Drive. Open with. There's a free program that you might want called DocHub. You can buy an upgrade, but the free one is good enough for this. We're going to open it up in DocHub. Now, DocHub is an amazing program, right? Amazing. It behaves somewhat like Adobe Acrobat, which if you're geek, you know what that means. So let's say this, okay, I don't like the comp analysis. I really don't, because it's committing me to a price. I like the map, but I don't like that. What could I do? Well, I go up here to Eraser. Oh, how about that? All right, no more comp analysis. Okay, right, that looks cool. I scroll down, oh, this heat map, right? That doesn't really add anything. In fact, I happen to know that my people are not the engineer types, and they don't want any of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete. All right, here we go. So those pages, they're gone. They're gone. Oh, I don't necessarily want, all of that stuff. Yes, I understand they're partners and, they paid money and all, but, it's not my problem. Okay, not my problem. Now, we've cleaned it up some. By the way, I could, using DocHub, insert stuff. I could put pictures and text and look at all these fun choices. When I'm done, I can either keep it in Drive, I could download it to the computer, I got lots of choices, right? Lots of choices. None of which I really care about right now. All right. Maybe that was something you already knew. Okay, so that's probably one of the primary uses of this program is to run a market analysis. All right. Now, the net sheets and things like that, we would use a different program. I'm going to have our friends at Chicago Title not only talk about the mobile apps that they have, the online ones, but do a deep dive into seller's net sheet. This is a dangerous thing to do perhaps in advance, because you don't know the dollar amount. Now, in addition to having RPR on my phone, I always have the Chicago Title I app, and I would have, before I went on the appointment, I would make sure that the information was in it so that it would give me what the net would be if I knew the loan amount, right? Because in order to do a net sheet, you got to know the loan amount. You should know the interest rate on their current loan. And you need to know what the price and commission is, which are things that you may not entirely know before you show up. You understand? So the problem with doing this net sheet here, especially when you're going on the appointment, is you may not have all the data, but if you practice with the mobile app, you could say, all right, at a price of this and that, commission of, 8%, whatever, this is what, and you could email it to people right from your mobile app. But net sheets are dangerous things if you don't know what you're doing. And if you really don't know what you're doing, you collect the data and have the title company do it for you. Questions about this? This is let's see, I've got, what chat? 3 homes included in the CMA is standard, but is it required? Nothing is required. Because we don't know, right? Sometimes there are no comps. We do the best we can. And I've been recently doing one for a property where I went back a year. And went out a little ways just to find anything. Sometimes there are no comps. What do you do if there are no comps? Well, you go back until you find one. Well, it's 2 years old. Would an appraiser use a 2-year-old comp? No, they probably wouldn't. No, I know they wouldn't, but let's say we were to go to Market Trends. And by the way, so all of this stuff, by the way, wouldn't that look cool? So let's say we are doing a single family home only to this chart. So this is telling us for that neighborhood, right? These also would come about. But notice how we can, in fact, say, well, back in May of 2020 on this date, it was, so we could, if we knew when the last good comp was, calculate how much the median average price has gone up in that area since that last sale. And then if it's gone up 15, 20%, we take the last comp, multiply it by 1.20 to find out what 20% more is. That's what you do when you don't have any comps. Sometimes I've convinced the seller to have an appraisal done, right? Because we don't have any comps. All right. Any other questions? What about an additional room without permission? How can we? I get asked this a lot. So I think what you're saying is, what if it says it's a 3-1 and you show up and it's a 5-3? Right? What are you going to do? Are you going to run a CMA for a 5-3? Or are you going to run it for a 3-1? So agents, call me up and they're like, I'm at a house, right? See, they didn't ask before they went there. Describe the house to me, right? They didn't ask that, right? So they're there and they call me up, I don't know what to do, right? It says in the tax record, this is a 3-1, but it's a 5-3. I'm afraid all this was done without permits. How should I do a market analysis? How many bedrooms should I include? And my answer is, when you walk through the house, how many bedrooms did you see? Well, there was 5. How many bathrooms did you see? Well, there was 3. So we're going to run a CMA based upon a 5-3. Then, well, wait a second. What are we going to do when the appraiser shows up? What are we going to do? Is the appraiser going to appraise it as a 5-3, right? Or is the appraiser going to appraise it, what the county records say, a 3-1? And my answer is, when the appraiser walks through the house, how many bedrooms will the appraiser count? Well, 5. How many bathrooms? 3. Will the appraiser measure the house? Yeah. Well, what do you think the square footage is? Well, the seller thinks it's about 2,800. Well, right. So now, is it true that the appraiser may make a note that it's possible that some of these improvements were done without the benefit of permits, which is why it doesn't show up in the county records. That's true. The appraiser may say that. But that doesn't make the extra bedrooms and square footage worthless. A lot of times you could pay a fee and go get the permits. Doesn't make it worthless. Maybe not worth as much as a permitted addition, but still worth a lot more than not having one at all. The appraiser appraises what the appraiser sees. We do a CMA based upon what we see. If we put it in the MLS as a 3-1, we're doing our client a disservice because it's a 5-3. And that's what people that want that would, you know. Other questions? All right. Is that it?
Okay, I got a question.
Oh, yeah.
So in your opinion, I've seen, this is why I raised my hand earlier. Would you say this is more superior to your local MLS than, it sounds like it is because you're describing off-market properties, but I just want to get your perspective on how beneficial it's been over your local MLS data.
I always recommend that you run the MLS too. And the reason, what I do is I would take the address of the property and I would go into my MLS. And this becomes a little wonkier because not everybody's in the same MLS. And I would do a search in my MLS based on the proximity of what's happened with this property. So in addition to what you've seen in RPR, and I mentioned at the first, I also would look at what the MLS says. Now, the reason that I almost always use RPR is because it's easier, quicker, and it looks nicer. That's it. So I might start by looking at everything. And I might say, well, it's a single family property. And even though you're not in my MLS, maybe your MLS has a similar way of doing this. Status change date, I want to go back 6 months just for fun. Map area selected, 82, right? Now, so there were 82 records, let's say 90 days, because I think that's what we did, 90 days. So now we're down to 42. If I say I only want it to be a 3 or 4 bedrooms, we're down to 34. Yeah. And sometimes it's because, oh, this is why. And then I might mark it here for half of a mile, look at the results. And then I would be, now some of these are canceled. It might be good for you to know that some of them are canceled. Like for example, 617 Navigator was on the market, canceled. Now it's back and it's a pending sale, right? And that doesn't necessarily have to go on our CMA, but if you're claiming to be the area specialist, you might want to know that, right? So I could, and so what I'm doing here really is I'm looking, and you have to add age, see, oh, it's over here, like this one that is 0, it's a brand new, right? You'd have to just, you could pick it out, right? And so, yeah, but this does not make a very pretty, this doesn't make a real pretty, it's not really pretty, let's just say, not pretty. So, but you could do it, and you could do a quick CMA, a cloud CMA, or a CMA, I guess. You could do this, but I don't use, because it doesn't look very nice and it takes much longer to do it with the MLS software. Cloud CMA is okay. One of the things I like about Cloud CMA, which you may have access to depending on your MLS, is that it'll look and see what did Zillow say this property was worth before it sold, and then what did it sell for, and then it would calculate the difference. By the way, Zillow has realized that this has made them look foolish, so sometimes they change their Zestimate as soon as a property is listed, so that when it sells for a number way off what they originally said, they don't look like they didn't know what they were doing. But Zillow doesn't know what they're doing, right? Just look at their iBuyer program, which they almost got bankrupted by because they were using the Zillow estimates. So I look to make sure that there isn't anything in the MLS that RPR missed. Right, I would look. And as long as I can account for everything, I would finish it in RPR. This looks nicer, right? Especially the one I cleaned up. Looks nicer, takes less time. You know, I mean, I'm a real estate agent. Anything that's quicker and easier, you know, I don't know. Now, the other thing that you can do, I don't want to go too far, but you also have access, and it varies by MLS which program it is, but you also have access to a tax record search. And the nice thing about RPR is it does that too, but you also could search for everything that went through the county recorder's office. The MLS won't do that by itself, whereas RPR will. So I use RPR. Quick, easy, off-market properties can be included, and check to see if they've missed any in the MLS. Right. The reason they might miss something in the MLS is because it's not a perfect system. Just not a perfect system. All right, if you're listing a home with a damaged pool, how do you change the value to reflect the damaged pool? Well, you would call a pool contractor out and ask them how much would it cost to fix the damaged pool. And then you would, once you got that estimate, you would include that in your disclosure package. You see, the problem with adjustments, not all pools are created equal, right? So is this a liner pool? Is it a concrete pool? Is it a black bottom pool? You know, is it above ground pool and in ground pool, right? Is it a, you know, what is the pool worth? And by the way, pools are only worth things, only worth money if the buyer wants one. I'm in an area where most buyers don't, and they'll say, we want you to get rid of the pool, right? But if you want to make an adjustment, and in a property, like if we were to go to this, let me go here to the home here. That's not what I wanted to do. So let's say we were to go to the property. One of the things that you can do is you can refine the value, really. And what you would do is go to the button that says refined value, and you can add improvements if you know the data was made, the type of improvement, and what was cost, and it'll calculate what it thinks the value of that improvement would add. That's assuming that the comps don't have it. If you're wondering how do they know what the value of a deck addition mid-range would add if made 3 years ago for $20,000, they use a database from the Hanley Wood Remodeling Group, right? Which is trying to against, anyhow, whatever, it's the only database we know of. If you go into needed improvement category, you could type in the pool needs to be fixed and type in the amount, put in any of the other things. You can refine the value of the subject property. You could say, well, our lot size is bigger than what's in the air. Our interior is much nicer than everyone. And then it'll be changing your estimated value. Supplemental tax estimates. Supplemental tax estimates are based upon the sales price of the property and would be 1% minimum to 1.25%. It's complicated. The escrow company would calculate what that would be. The seller does not have the money to repair the pool, and the pool is in ground, and even to fill it in costs, also have to get a permit and wants the cash. So you just tell them you have a crappy pool, right? And if you notice how you can put in the cost of the improvements as a way of adjusting the value. It needs a roof, it needs a, you know, and you can put that in. By the way, you should caution your client that just because the pool needs $20,000 worth of work doesn't mean that the buyer is going to just subtract $20,000. There's a hassle factor. of having people come and, work on the pool. So oftentimes they want more of a credit for the repairs than the cost. Think of a flipper. The flipper wants to sell for more than the cost of the repairs. Any other questions? Would you like me to continue in future classes talking about how you can use this program for farming, prospecting, buyer tours, and other fun things? Would that sound like something? And maybe even get into the differences with the mobile app? I'm getting no. Oh, those are yeses. Okay, great. Then I shall schedule that. I like talking about this stuff. All right, I assume you've been RPR'd enough. I'm assuming that, right? And anyhow, that's all I got. Have a great day, everyone. Does everyone like my, yeah, I have a lot of free time on my hands. Bye.